So the awesome Flux model by Black Forest Labs is available on some sites, but you either have to deal with a bunch of crappy ads or you got to consume it as an API endpoint. Since consuming APIs is something that n8n does really well, I made a quick workflow template that lets you use the Flux model through a simple web form. In the rest of this video, I'll show you how to set it up in a couple minutes. For this, you're going to need an n8n account. You can self-host for free or use our cloud product. You're also going to need a huggingface account, which is also free, and some way to store the data. I'm using Cloudflare that has a free R2 account. Starting from your n8n account, you're going to want to open up the template library, and then from here, let's search for Flux Generator. Open it. And then from here, we'll click Use Workflow. If you open it from your n8n account, you're going to see this Import Template option. If you don't see this, you're just going to copy the template and paste it in. Let's do that route just so everyone sees how to do this. We'll add a workflow, and I'm hitting Command V to paste it in. I've got my workflow here. There's a few errors that we got to handle first. These are the credentials we got to add to connect to. So if we zoom in, we can see, if we open up this one, this is our Hugging Face node. So this is where we got to add our Hugging Face account. If you see here, the header auth is empty, and we would create a new credential. In here, it asks for name and value. So if I go over to Hugging Face, and let's say we actually go on the model itself. If I click on the Inference API here, I can actually manage my tokens from here. So we'll create a new token. We'll give it a name. Let's just make this a write token. It can access everything, or you could just access the Inference API, whatever you like. We'll create it. I'll copy this, and this is a header auth. So what you have to write in here is write authorization. And then I'm going to write it in here so you can see the password because the value here is blurred. But you're going to want to write the word bearer space, enter API key, copy that, and paste that in. Okay, and let's also maybe give it a name. Cool. So we'll save that. So now that we've got the credential, now we got to do the same thing for this S3 node. This is a generic S3 node. It works on the S3 protocol, so you don't have to use Amazon S3 here. And I'm using Cloudflare because it's completely free. Their S3 product is called R2. So if I click on that, the first thing you're going to want to do is to create a new bucket. We'll call it my bucket. Great. These standard settings are usually okay. Now you'll go over to the settings of this bucket. The first thing we want to do is here in the R2 dev subdomain, we want to allow access. This makes it public accessible by the internet, which is something we're going to need because we're using this to host images, right? Great. Now we'll copy the S3 API URL here, go back in here, and we'll create a credential and we'll create a new one. S3 endpoint, that's that S3 API endpoint that we just copied over. For region, this does not have effect. I've been clearing it and it's been working even though my account was in the EU region. Now access key ID and secret access key. This was a little tricky for me actually to find, but I found it by going to objects here when I'm in my newly created bucket, creating this S3 compatibility API link in here, going down to authentication, clicking this create API key link, and then from this view, you can create a new API key. Let's call R2 token test, for example. You do need to change this to object read and write. We need to write because we need to upload images. And then we could apply this just to a specific bucket to be safe. So we could apply it just to that new bucket we created. And we can create. This outputs a few different values. It's the access key ID and the secret access key that we need. So copy that, paste that in there, the secret access key. Great. And from here we can hit save. Now we got our S3 credential. And the next thing we're going to do is update the bucket name because this is still from my template here. So I'll go over in here, copy the bucket name that we created, paste that in. Now, the last thing we need to do is there's this web page that we're returning with the image results. And it's in here in the response body. If I click through this button here to open it up, scroll to the bottom, there's a few things here that are a little bit broken because we've got a different Cloudflare root domain here for the image, right? This is an image tag here. This is how we're rendering it. So if I go back in R2, click on settings and scroll down, we can use this public R2 dev bucket URL here, copy that, go back in here, and you can see that we should replace up to there, right? Make sure you still have the / and the FG. That means you haven't truncated anything. Now, we've also got this section that shows previous images. So let's replace that as well. Or you could just remove this section if you don't want to see the last couple images you've rendered. Great, we've updated those. And from here, we'll close this node and we'll save our workflow. We'll activate the workflow. Activating the workflow means that it's live now, which means that my trigger node here, if I double click on it, it has a production URL. I can click that, I can open a new tab, and if we go to this, I can now access the form and fill it out. So let's say a teddy bear holding a gun. Hyper surreal escape is a great style for teddy bears holding guns. And then this is gonna take, it sometimes takes 5-6 seconds, sometimes takes 20, but as you can see, we got a teddy bear holding a gun. This section here will be broken the first couple times you run it because these images need to exist so they can be populated here. But after the first couple of images, that'll work. And then you can just hit refresh because it didn't change the route. It just swapped the HTML. So you can just refresh to run it again. So we could say a teddy bear on a roller coaster. Wouldn't that be fun?